Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Bolters and Heretics podcast. I'm your host Dan, and joining me today we have Brian Robbie
Hey everybody.
and Craig MacArthur.
Hello.
So on today's episode, we're going to be talking secondary objectives, and we're going to be looking at them through the Grand Tournament 2020. We're going to be looking at it more through of like a tournament aspect rather than just core rule book. Because from my understanding, people are going to be using more of the Grand Tournament than they're actually going to be using the rule book anyways. So before we actually jump into it, we're just going to jump over, do a little shout out to the sponsors, and we'll be right back. So just want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors. Up first, we got the guys down at the Comic Hunter. For you guys, the listeners, they want to give you a little bit of a bonus. If you jump over to their website, thecomichunter.net, they want to give you guys 10% off all online orders containing GW products. If there's something that you can't find on their website, they'll be more than happy to help you out. If you jump over to their Facebook page, the Comic Hunter Moncton, send them a message with anything that you are looking for. They'll definitely be able to hook you guys up. So once your online cart is nice and full of GW products, all you gotta do is enter promo code BHORCAugust, and that's how you're gonna get your 10% off your orders. Up next, we got the guys down at Level Up Wargaming. They're a local wargaming club that myself and a lot of members of Bolters and Heretics go each week to get our fill of wargaming in. So if you jump over to their Facebook page, Level Up Wargaming Moncton, you'll be able to keep up to date with which games are being played which nights. And if you're looking to get a game in an off night, leave a message on the board and I'm sure somebody will be more than happy to reply and get a game in with you. So let's dive right back into the episode. Alright guys, and welcome back. So just to give you a reminder, this is the last week for the Chaos Space Marines giveaway. So just head over to our Facebook page, Instagram page, find the picture of the box set, leave a like, leave a comment, and you'll be entered in the giveaway on next week's episode. So before we actually jump into the full topic of secondary objectives, reason I brought Mr. MacArthur on is we have news of Bolters and Heretics' first tournament, and it'll be hosted by Level Up Wargaming. Take her away.
So it's time to start getting back into the tournament scene now that things are changing a bit more in the Atlantic bubble. We're lucky enough that we already have a crew in St. John that have already hosted a 1,000-point event and now actually hosting a 1,500-point actually later in September. We're looking to follow suit and have something in October. So we're going to provide a locale, some terrain, and atmosphere and ambiance to support your guys' event. It's going to be a 1,500-point strike force, a little bit of house rules with 9 command points. We'll do a 2-hour, 15 minutes per round. 3 rounds. We're aiming for the dice to drop at 10, hoping people are going to be there early, get themselves ready, get a little bit of smack talk in there while they're at it. It'll be a $20 entry fee, and we're going to do a 14-person cap. If you are interested in participating, you can definitely reach out to myself, or we can set up everything through our levelupmoncton@gmail.com email address. So just send who you are and that you're looking to participate. And if you're looking to prepay in advance, which would be preferred in all honesty, you can submit an e-transfer to the levelupmoncton@gmail.com. Obviously, any questions, pretty much everyone unfortunately knows who I am, so you have no hard way to track me down through Facebook or just at our club. As always, the club's at 210 McLeese Lane. We will be doing full face masks for the duration of the event, and there'll be a sanitizing station set up throughout the location so that you can sanitize, make sure you don't touch, lick, or do anything awkward with anyone else's dice or books. But other than that, yeah, that's what we're looking to do for October.
No, definitely looking forward to that one. Definitely looking forward to working with you and getting many more tournaments in the future. But like Craig was also saying, World's Edge Wargaming with the Gamezilla Eternal War series, September 19th. We have a link of that on our actual Bolters and Heretics Facebook page. From my understanding, I do believe they have sold out. Myself and Mr. MacArthur will be attending the tournament, hopefully representing the Moncton boys. Hopefully bring the trophies home, right?
Well, we've got 6 people from Moncton going down, so Moncton will definitely represent. I will probably be bringing up the rear, but I will do it in very fashionable way with my Raven Guard, yeah. No one can roll ones like I can. So there's a skill to that, folks. 30 years of training to roll the ones that I roll. So you're welcome.
So, jumping into today's episode, secondary objectives. So, essentially, these will be the secondary objectives that you'll probably be seeing in the World's Edge Wargaming series, also the Bulls and Heretics Fall Bash. So, today's episode, what I'm going to be doing, I'll be going down each category, I'll be reading off each one. It'll be more or less just giving our input on how much do we think they're going to see gameplay, which armies might actually benefit more from these, and yeah, just give our initial thought. So, just in case anybody is not aware, when you are choosing secondary objectives in the game, you're only allowed to choose one per category. So that's why, like, obviously, like, take the time, read them over. I know of myself, I've been doing a little bit more research than I normally would. And it definitely helps a lot because I've known in the past, I've gone through to a couple of ITC events and I didn't really take the time to really jump into the actual secondaries. And I've kind of screwed myself over, I guess, where it's like, oh, well, you know what, this one looks like it could be done. And halfway through the game, and I'm rereading something, I'm like, you know what? If I would have took the time to actually read them, I would have known what better ones to take. And that's why, like I said, today this episode is going to be more or less for myself and for everybody listening to really take the time, know what each one does, what do they involve, and how they can actually work with your playstyle and your army type.
Well, the
So,
fun thing for that, Danny, if I could jump in there,
yeah.
like you're saying with ITC, you'd think later on that, after the fact, you had that kind of that moment of realization that I should have done this and that. Reading these in advance and tailoring them to your army, they're here to use your army's strengths. Yes, you're going to have to tailor it a bit against different armies, which is the whole idea of it. But really, there's going to be some things that just aren't going to work well for your army. Raven
Mm,
Guard, a lot of times Slay the Warlord is going to be beneficial to me. And with the new change that's in the other book, that is much more appealing to
mm,
me than what's in the rule book. Um, you know, but I'm not going to have a lot of men, so controlling a lot of land, anything of that nature is not going to be good. So when you make your list, then tailor your secondary objectives to that and make a cheat sheet.
mm.
Have a list of like, this is what's going to be the best options for me. This is how I'm going to maximize based off of one, how I play in general, and two, how does my army work?
And like you were saying, cheat sheet, I've actually taken that out of your book. I've caught myself many times being like, hey, man, what stratagem am I supposed to be using? Or what secondary? So I actually started making like little cue cards or a sheet being like, this unit can use this stratagem during this phase. And I find it's been able to speed my gameplay up. And whenever I'm middle of the game, I'm not, oh, which one do I have? Which one do I have? And it definitely helps to not slow down the game. It helps you keep at pace. And I'm sure your opponent would appreciate that very much. So, for secondaries, the different categories we are looking at, we have Battlefield Supremacy, No Mercy, No Respite, Purge the Enemy, Shadow Operations, and Warpcraft. So, starting off, we'll go down in order. So, we'll be starting at the Battlefield Supremacy. So, first one on that list is Engage on All Fronts. You score 2 victory points at the end of your turn if you have one or more unit from your army wholly within 3 different table quarters, and those units are all more than 6 inches from the center of the battlefield. Score 3 victory points instead if you have one or more units from your army wholly within each table quarter, and those that are not, or sorry, and those units are more than 6 inches from the battle or center. Sorry. So we'll start with you, Craig. So with the smaller table sizes, how do you think that's going to play compared to the old rules? Especially because if I remember correctly, in the ITC missions back then, there was no away 6 inches from the actual centers, and now this game seems like everybody wants to rush to the middle.
Well, like anything, if you're going to have a smaller table, and that's why GW did this, or at least one of the reasons why they did this, is that you'd have games that would take too long. Like if you're spending more time just moving up the board because you were either too scared to put yourself ahead because you weren't sure you're going to get the first turn, or you're playing an army that you're just going to castle or turtle, then you're just never going to make it across. Now it's smaller. People are going to have to move because either there's going to be things like this that are going to make you move, or they're coming straight at you. There's no hiding from guns like you used to be able to. You get Marines that have the 30-inch shot range with their boat rifles. that's a big chunk of the board. When you lose a couple of inches on each end, it's a lot easier to get things. And a lot more of these scenarios, even like in the Crusade side too, a lot of them are designed as putting you right into the mixing pot.
Mm.
And a lot of this is encouraging close combat. So I think it's great. Um, Mind you, the big thing is too is now you have to think about, can I get to the center? Can I stay in the center, or can I keep people away? Like, there's a lot of different things you have to do now because yeah, everyone's seeming to want to move now. It's the stationary I shoot you, you shoot me doesn't seem to be the trend that it was with eight.
Well, I think it's because people are going to get in your face faster than where you were in 8th edition.
Oh, Tyranids are scary. I don't want to. Tyranids are just awful. I haven't played them in ninth yet, and I don't want to, because they're just going to be right there right away, and I'm not going to know what to do with them. Or
Mm.
that one guy that's going to say, you know what, I'm going to do a proper white scars. I'm going to have all bikes. If I don't get turn one, I've got bikes running all over me before I can even blink,
We're
which
looking
is
at Duke
cool.
here.
Yeah, that was meant for you, buddy. But the big thing is that that's not a bad thing because I found Eighth Edition really was at a disadvantage for anyone that was fighting. So the fact that we're encouraged to move and not stay stationary and become a shooting only game, story how I know you got screwed over. Um, I think it's more beneficial. It makes it healthier. It makes people want to move and think and actually have to
Yeah.
pay more attention to moving, unit coherency, things of that nature. So
So do you think you'll see Engage in All Fronts played more because of the whole center thing, or do you think that people will be able to space off enough to get the quarters and stuff? So, well, especially where, like I said, the battlefields are a little bit smaller now, so it's almost easier to get to the quarters, even if you are a little bit of a slower army. Like myself, with Dark Eldar, back in 8, like I would take this every day of the week because I'd be able to get all 4 table quarters every turn, essentially.
Yeah.
I think it's more feasible. The thing is there's so many options now too that like for myself, depending upon like I wouldn't go for that, but I think that's it's obviously very doable. It's a lot easier to move around, but the problem is that you have a lot more people you got to fight through to get around. So I
Mm.
don't know. I don't know if more people are going to take like. I think more people will be interested in taking it. I don't know if this would be the first one I'd want to take though. Um, but that's just
Yeah.
me. My play style is not that super aggressive all the time. So
Mm. But with
I,
you, Brian, with your Death Guard and Coven mostly, do you think that'd be something you would see yourself playing with, or?
I probably would still take it because I can split up a bit. I like that whole 6 inches in the center thing. Like you can't be within 6 inches of the center, so you got like a 12 inch diameter circle around the center that you can't sit in to get points out of there.
Mm.
I like that because you're not gonna have those castling space marines just camping the center of the board and banking recon what it used to be every turn.
Mm.
With the Xenos, I feel we have that speed that we can hit that corners a lot quicker and maintain the secondary.
Exactly, like I was saying with
Mm.
Dark Eldar, like I said, we both play them, and that was something that, like I said, I've always taken because I would never stay to the middle quarters. I'd
No,
always be
you never
outside
want to go
quarters
middle.
and hide, just hide.
well, the
Then
middle
they
is
can
usually
outrun
wide
you.
open. That's why you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You can't hide with that little toughness you got. My coven can do it, but your
Yeah.
Cabalite warriors and stuff, not a chance.
No. So next one on the list, Line Breaker. So score 4 victory points at the end of your turn if 2 or more units from your army, excluding aircraft, are wholly within your opponent's deployment zone. So we'll start with you, Brian, on that one.
I mean, I'd still go for that too, even with the Dark Eldar. Death Guard, not a chance. I wouldn't get there soon enough to get
You'll
the
get 4
points.
points because you'll be there by turn 4.
But like I could use strategic reserves and come in, but with the Eldar, I'm a lot quicker at getting there, and I can hold it with the Coven.
Hmm.
It's like I don't really know what to go from there, but
But no, it is true. And but yeah, to keep in mind too, like Line Breaker, what's kind of good too, it's like you're almost forcing your opponent's hand. Is like if out of nowhere it's turn two, your opponent's like half their army's in your deployment zone. That's almost
yeah.
going to stop you from going more
Well,
because, like
it's
I
like
said, now
what
you're
Craig's
dealing with
saying.
that.
The White Scars, they're going to be in your face turn one, so that's already line breaker,
Mm,
and that's going to play his hand with his little Raven Guard. He's going to roll a
mm.
lot of ones at that point.
Yep. But Line Breaker, the thing is with that, I find is that once you play it, you're basically saying like I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
Like obviously that's the intent. It's a war game. Like you know the person's coming for you. But if you know that that's one of the objectives they're taking, you're just like, well, okay. So basically at that point you're looking at almost kind of making just like a big bulkhead to try to stop them. But at the same time, like how much am I going to try to stop you
Yeah.
and then hinder my chance to get anything depending upon what I've picked.
Mhm.
Line Breaker is interesting, like but I think it can really backfire. It's to me, it's either going to really succeed or it's going to really bomb. It's I don't find Line Breaker is really going to be either or. Somebody's going to come stop you, or like you said, you're going to be so busy trying to stop the other person because maybe they're up in your grill too.
Mm.
Like everyone's here. I could go over there, but now like they're behind me type idea. So then all of a
Yeah.
sudden in this you're
And
leaving yourself wide
it's the
open.
fact that you need 2 units back there to score the points now is a little different from eighth because you only needed one before, didn't you?
Yeah, as long as you had something
So
wholly within the deployment zone, yeah. So you need two now. No, like I say, it's going to be those. I can see like a Venom spam.
yeah,
That can easily, like I said, just shoot them up the board, this and that, multiple small units, or. Okay, so next one on the list, Domination. Score 3 victory points if you control more than half the total number of objective markers on the battlefield at the end of your turn. So I'll jump on that one. So essentially, Domination is honestly, in my opinion, going to vary on the mission you're playing. Because if you're going to be playing a mission that only has 3 objectives, if you're going first, it's feasible. If you can get up fast enough, camp a bunch of Plague Marines on it or Grotesque and hold it, then you're good. But if you're going to start playing a game that has 4 objectives, 2 in each deployment zones, that's not feasible. Essentially, you're going to be working way too much overtime to actually get to the other side by the time you get it to make it worth it wild.
now I see Custodes taking advantage of that one because they have objectives secured over everything, don't they? So they could just walk
Not
up to an
sure, but yeah.
objective and take it.
Mm,
Pretty sure it's something
Well,
like that.
they're hardy. They can hold things, but
Yeah,
like if there's nothing to dominate, there's no good. Like you need to have one of those things that there's an abundance of objectives to really
yeah,
make good thing. Because if there's only like Danny was saying 2 and 2, I have to bank that I'm keeping my 2 that are close to me, and in theory taking one, at least
yeah,
one, from the opponent. And then if you're an army too that doesn't have enough army to
yeah. I guess like Custodes.
spread out. Like if you don't have this, you don't have the sheer manpower to spread out or the fortitude to spread out and actually hold a spot. Sending 10 guardsmen over to a little thing, well, one good sneeze and they're gone.
mm.
So you have to really be either really mobile and grab stuff and then keep moving around, or you have to be tough and just
Sit
brick
and
out
hope for
and
the
just stay right
best.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think this would be one if like you're almost looking for a 5 objective marker mission to get the most bang out of the buck for that one. I'm thinking
Yeah, the 2 in your deployment, and one in the center. Hold center.
exactly. All right. So next one is No Mercy, No Respite. So this one, if you select this objective, keep a tally of kill points. Each time an enemy model is destroyed, add 1 to this tally. Add 10 to the tally instead if the model was just destroyed and has a wound characteristic of 10 or more. A model can, if it is resurrected for any reason, i.e. was destroyed in subsequent and returned on the battlefield, potentially add several points to this tally, assuming it is resurrected and destroyed several times over. At the end of the battle, divide your kill point tally by 10 and round down. The result is the number of victory points you score. So obviously this is going to be the Horde killer.
Yeah.
It's the only time you're going to be seeing this one.
Now, the thing to that, other than the fact that subsequently is not a fun word to try to say
Nope,
in,
as
in
you
reading
guys can
that.
tell. I skipped it the next
But
time.
the thing is that sometimes when you're looking at this, now this is just a point of view. I find when you have too much to read, that makes it almost a hindrance. It's like one of those things you go to a restaurant and you have too many choices. It becomes like overwhelming. You just take a default. And I think some people may skip over that, or not even because there's too much to read. It sounds silly, but a lot of people, when they're playing a game, if they haven't done their research in advance, They're going to skip over stuff like
Like
this.
I was saying at the beginning, you're just skimming through quick before the game's like, whatever, go to the next one.
Yeah,
And
and it's just like there's too much here, and I can't say subsequently, so I'm just nope, I'm not
I
bothering.
can't say that word.
Uh,
Screw this mission. But at the end of the day, like I said, so it's the whole tally. So obviously, if you're going up against hordes, 1 point. So essentially, you need to either kill 150 foot troops, or if you actually destroy, like say you destroy a rhino, 10 wounds. If yeah, it has 10 wounds if I remember correctly, rhino.
yeah,
Rhino, I
It's been
think
a
so.
while that I've used it. But
10,
again,
10 to 11.
yeah. So you
It's in
kill a
that
rhino,
those. Yeah,
that's counts as 10. So there's your one victory point.
yeah. But the thing is how much investment. Like if you know you're going to go in there for sheer destruction, and you're sitting there trying to tally, or yeah, if you're playing and you're playing against Death Guard and there's just pox walkers everywhere, or you're playing guard and there's guard everywhere, then yeah, that's an easy pick. But I don't see this being something that if I looked at like a Space Marine army, just no, I wouldn't probably want to take this. But yeah, like you said, if you see the hordes and you're just like you're waiting 20 minutes for your opponent to deploy everything because he has that many models, yeah, go for that.
Or like I said, it'd be kind of like, unless like I said, like if you have a Tau gun line and you have the sheer amount of firepower to just be like pop 100 shots per round, then could be feasible. But like you say, and it's more or less your opponent's like, is there enough to be able to get 150 points worth of kill to maximize your 15 points? Next one down, grind them down. Score 3 victory points at the end of the battle round if more enemy units than friendly units were destroyed in the battle round. So more or less, kill more from the ITC.
Yeah.
So Brian, if you want to lead us on this one.
I mean, I can see Space Marines and stuff taking this one a lot too, especially against Xenos players where we just die because we're glass. It's not something that I'd probably take too often because most of the time I'm going 1-for-1 or barely hitting the same amount as my opponent. But at the same time, I'm durable, so that's why it goes 1-for-1.
Mm.
But yeah, I feel that there's better secondaries for myself to take.
Yourself, Craig?
Oh, I find with grind them down in this situation, it becomes you really have to track what you're doing. If you were in a good spot, like I could kill 4 units this turn.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to because then you've killed too much. You've basically you have to
You need to
make this
make it
kind of
last.
so you're almost counterintuitive to yourself. So if you know that you're going to be able to balance it, you know what, I should kill at least one more every turn. But if you know you're going to do the spot where you can potentially have a potpourri of death and you can kill a lot in one go, are you going to actually pull yourself back from killing those so that you don't screw yourself over from a point of view? Or are you going to play to the objective and then so that's where that thought process comes in. So I've never been a big fan of that because I don't want to have to sit there and think, shoot, I lost 7 points. I killed too many that round 3, that round 4. I got nothing to kill because I have everything called out. So now I'm not getting points this turn. That's great because now nothing's shooting at me, but I didn't play to the objective, and that's where a lot of people always fail in big tournaments is that they don't play to the objective. And
Mm.
that I find makes you actually think more than people realize that you have to think. You really have to be a good judge of what you're doing
Yeah,
and don't get.
Good point.
yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you were saying. It's like you obviously want to kill as much as you can because, like you said, the more you kill, well, the less they're shooting back at you. But you kill too much at the beginning, and like you said, you'll never max out your whole 15 points of it. So
Corn Corn doesn't like this. This isn't the blood gods choosing. It's
unless
not
you're
an
running
option.
like 30 units, and I don't care. Corn cares not. Blood flows. He's happy as long as he gets his 15
Yeah.
points.
Yeah.
Next on the list, while we stand, we fight. If you select this objective, then before the battle you must identify which 3 models from your army, excluding models with the fortification battlefield role, have the highest points value, and you make a note of them on your army roster. If 2 or more models are tied, you can choose between them. If your army has 3 or fewer models, then you instead identify all units in your army. A model's point cost includes the points of all weapons and war gears equipped with. You score 5 victory points for each of these models that are on the battlefield at the end of the battle. That's another one that I think people are just going to read and be like, no, pass. But honestly, as a Death Guard player, a lot of times Plague Burst Crawlers are going to be something that I can see maybe making it to the end. So
Which
if
is
you want to
true,
take away,
but you can't have Mortarion in your list.
no, that's just a giant ass target.
Yeah,
And I actually
and
remember
he
hearing
would be
people
one of the
say,
ones you identify.
oh yeah, like obviously this Knights, you do not want to take it because already you're a priority shot right there from the get-go, let alone choosing this. So I think this would be it's weird because it says it has to be your 3 most expensive units. That's where I can see it being.
I could see it Space Marine castles because their characters are all around the same. Like, not a lot of them. I guess they bring Leviathans and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's your characters that are the most expensive, and those are the ones that are going to be castling around.
Mhm. So as a Space Marine player, Craig, what would you think of that?
Personally, I'm going back to kind of what I said in regards to thin the ranks. I find that's a bit wordy. I appreciate the nature of where it's going, but for myself, I don't know if I'd take it. Um, but I do agree with Brian saying there's a way that with Space Marines, depending upon what you take, you could find a way to kind of balance it out. That's the one thing with Marines. There's enough choices that you can purposely make your army pretty equally balanced for points so that you could kind of maybe have a bit better choice of who you're picking and also making them a bit more survivable, etc. But I don't know. I don't see this in a tournament coming up too often. I think this is a bit more. This would be more of a fluff side thing, but I could be
Mm,
wrong.
no, I definitely agree with that one. So next one, we move on to Purge the Enemy. So first one on there is Titan Hunter. Score 10 victory points at the end of the battle if one enemy Titanic model is destroyed, 12 victory points if 2 enemy Titanic models are destroyed, or 15 victory points if 3 or more enemy Titanic models are destroyed. So as soon as you hear Titanic, you're obviously taking that against a Knight player.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
think
a
there's
very
more to say
situational
than
strat.
that.
Yeah, there's nothing fancy to put to this. It's
No.
basically this is a one trick pony. It's basically this shows up, you use this. But the thing is too, then, but can you take down the knights? Because like
Mm,
sometimes you're lucky just to get to take down one, let alone trying to deal with three. So
true.
Yeah,
You're,
three
you're
knights
essentially
is a
going
tough
for
gamble.
tabling them, yeah. Okay, next one, Bring It Down. Score 2 victory points at the end of the battle for each enemy monster or vehicle model with a wounds characteristic of 10 or less that was destroyed, and 3 victory points for each monster or vehicle model with a wound characteristic of 11 or more that is destroyed. So, Craig, we'll start with you with this one.
bring it down. It's a good one to take if your opponent does have some bigger things or tanks or you're going against a guard player. There's lots of tanks, so there'll be lots of things to choose from. If you're going against a marine player who's playing more infantry per se, this may not come into play. So this is very situational. It's basically,
Yeah.
is there a lot of giant things pointing their guns at me? Yes. Can I blow them up? Yes. Let's take it down. Bring
Mm.
it down, I should say. Um, Other than that, it's again, it's like Titan Hunter. It's basically it's very situational. It's a one trick pony. You'll know as soon as you see the table if you're going to pick it or not.
Yeah. Brian, I'm guessing you're pretty much same thing.
Yeah, same thing, really. I know it really hurts my Dark Eldar because of the Coven. I'm about 90% monster.
Well, it's like I said, just the way I run like Ravengers.
Yeah, but
But
even then, you only got 3 Ravagers. I guess, do Venoms have the vehicle keyword?
yep. So that's what I mean.
Yeah,
You take out
that would
Venoms, you
hurt.
take out Raiders, you take out anything at all, Ravengers, they all have it.
Yeah.
So next one, cut off the head, which is essentially kill the warlord, but I actually enjoy how they did it here compared to the rule book. The rule book, it almost made it you can never score more than 6. Here they actually gave you a chart that actually allows you to score more points depending where. So essentially, at the end of the battle, you score a number of victory points if the enemy warlord was destroyed during the battle. The number of victory points scored depends on the battle round during which the enemy warlord was destroyed. So essentially, battle round 1, you'll get 13 points. Battle round 2, 10. Round 3, 6. Round 4, 3. Round 5 for 1. If an enemy warlord was destroyed, but then was resurrected or otherwise returned to the battlefield, and I'm not going to say that word, destroyed again, then for the purpose of the secondary objective, it was destroyed during the battle round, which it was last removed from the battlefield. And I think that's the big wording right there, is the last time he was taken off is where you're going to score. So we'll start with you, Brian. What do you think with that one?
That's a very situational one for me. Most people like to hide around, like they bury their warlord turn 1, turn 2. So I feel like you'd only score the 6 victory points on that one. You wouldn't really come out on top in that one. Like I know Justin's Iron Hands or whatever, he just buries his character in the middle. So even if I did get in turn 1 charge, I'm not going to get to that character. If I had snipers or something that I could take enough pot shots to maybe do damage, I'd do it. I'd probably even take this against a custody player where they like to come in turn 1 with their warlord,
Mm.
and where I have enough power, I could put the damage on them.
Yeah.
But,
And Craig,
Well,
we were actually talking about this one earlier.
yeah, from the Raven Guard point of view, I can easily, this is achievable if I take the right combination of things and play my cards right. Mind you, you actually mentioned Mr. Gray's army. With the way he plays it, his characters are tough. He has a whole bunch of buffs, and I've tried to get through that little castle, and it's a pain in the arse. But if you play Imperial Guard army, oh look, there's a little guy just standing there looking off in the distance with a very shiny feather on his helmet.
Yeah.
He's a much juicier target. So this would be almost a given for me to take, but it depends on who I'm playing. That's the big thing.
it's a pretty
There's certain
situational
armies that I'm,
secondary.
yeah. So, but I do agree with what Danny was saying, because when we were discussing previous to this, like looking at the differences between what's changed, what's not. This one stood out the most beyond the fact that it has a cute little chart on the page, but the fact that there's actually progression on it as opposed to just it's always this, it never changes. It's like, nope, if you want this, you got to work for it, and you need to plan your deployment around it. You need to be smart about it, and you have to hope that your opponent slips up and doesn't pay attention and basically gives you those points. Because if they're paying attention, you're not getting this, to the point that they might even just say, okay, you know what, my guy's not coming out to turn 3, he's going to hide behind this rock and screw you. So yeah, but that's also good because you know what? All those buffs he gave, you're hiding behind a rock. So I'm still ahead, and it's just in a different way.
No, it's true. You might be losing out on some points, but like I said, they're going to be losing out on, like you said, the buffs. So giving up tougher units or extra accuracy, or depending on how far he has them hidden away.
And just so you know, Danny, subsequently, that is the word of the day.
I'm going to practice tonight. I'll get back to you next time. It might take me a few episodes, but I will say it.
Yeah. So listeners, on the next podcast, make sure you listen. That's going to be this word that he's going to just kind of tuck that in as a random word just to throw into a sentence.
It is. It's not even going to make sense at all. It could be like the cat walked across subs. I'm not even going to try. Okay, next episode. So next one is assassinate. Score 3 victory points at the end of the battle for each enemy character model that's destroyed. So back to you, Craig. Literally talking about the warlord kill. You have the same firepower to essentially do the same thing.
Yeah, again, being the Raven Guard guy, we have an issue with authority. We don't like it. We want to kill all the leaders. Sorry, it's a thing. So yeah, with this, it's great. But again, it's situational. Like you always go into a game, and the first question everyone asks, "How many characters do you have?"
And that's the thing with this. With now, before you would see an army with like say 6, 7 characters because you had to build your things. Now, where essentially you're going into it, and a lot of players are playing a single battalion. That's 3 characters. So
it's It's like a weird like first date thing, and it's just like, hey, tell me a bit more yourself, and how many characters do you have? Like, so that's always kind of the first thing, and you know what they're going at. They're kind of thinking, okay, this is so right away they've given away like this is what I want to do, or this is how I want to tackle things. Um, but again, certain armies have to have the characters because they have to have the buffs. They have to create that synergy, and that's great because that means that's a chance for me to get points off of them. But it also means that I have the advantage to be able to take away that synergy. Because some people's armies are complete garbage if they build everything around those 5 guys or 4 guys or whatever. So yeah. So again, situational, but can be really great if you have the right army to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's like my Dark Eldar, the Coven or whatever. I got 2 characters. You take out them, I'm losing my toughness, my strength, and my leadership buffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like that hurts my Coven side a lot. I still keep my 4 up because it's a trade, but the one army that I play that I'm gonna have a big problem with that one is my Death Guard. I have a lot of characters.
Yeah,
It's
because
because like I
apparently
got
the
my
elite
HQs and my
guys.
elites are all characters.
But your guys are tough. That's
We
the
are
thing.
tough,
Like
but
you need to have
Raven Guard,
eliminators. Yeah,
Raven
but I
Guard
have to
with
be,
good dice rolls.
which is not me, but Raven Guard with good dice rolls and on the right
Yeah,
turn to get those bonuses from the Raven Guard ability and just being Space Marines is a great combo.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that when you're going against toughness 5, that makes a big deal. So
Yeah.
then you're looking at trading different synergies to get that +1 to wound roll
Mm.
to get the different. If you don't have that, you're not getting anywhere because all of a sudden now you're rolling for 5s, and rolling for 5s is not a way to win a game. That's basically just playing a Hail Mary and hoping for the best. So
yeah.
you with an army like that, I wouldn't take that
Yeah.
because I'm gambling on everything going right in my way.
Mm.
That's too much of a risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Death Guard is one of those ones that I kind of like. No, I'm not touching your characters. Like, if I have to get rid of one, I'll go. But like, the toughness is a big issue.
It is.
So, in your standpoint, which secondary from the Purge the Enemy category would you take against a Death Guard player? Would you try to get the
Um,
Warlord, or would you try to kill our tanks, or would you try to kill characters?
if basically with regards to your question specifically, if I had like out of those 4, which what I would pick, I would go for the assassinate characters.
Yeah,
If I was put in that situation,
Mm.
I probably wouldn't take something from Purge the Enemy if I was fighting against a Death Guard.
Yeah.
The reason I wouldn't take Bring It Down, again, the fact that it's a multi-wound, your tanks, and you are getting your disgustingly resilient, you're getting all these extra dice rolls. You're basically killing my spirit every time you roll, and I'm like, yes, I got it. And then you go, and all of a sudden those 1s turn into 5s, and then I'm
Mm.
sitting there ready to flip the table because I'm just like, you just rolled garbage, and now you just rolled incredible. And that's usually how I find disgustingly resilient works. Is basically you guys shit the bed on the front end. You can't roll worth crap. But then you take all that luck that you just basically didn't use and you shove it all into that disgusting resilience, and then bam, you're a god.
5s and
And then you're just
6s.
rolling 5s and 6s, which I have faced against Danny in some of
Sorry.
our games. No, it's all right. I find it amusing because I find that actually seems to be a trend with any of the Death Guard players I've played. And good on you, Grandfather Nurgle's looking out for you, and blessed be all the filth and stuff. But I just find it interesting. So for me, with that experience, I'm weary. Obviously, I need to take out the big targets.
Mm.
But if that is what's going to win me the game in the sense of points, I'm less excited about that. I'd
Yeah.
rather use against a Death Guard army. I'm going to take things that are going to be mobility because you guys are slow,
Yeah.
and
We
I
have
can
like
always
2 models that can
outmaneuver.
actually move.
Yeah, I can always outmaneuver a Death Guard. I've never had an issue with outmaneuvering it. I basically had the problem with going toe to toe because you guys are tanks. And that's fine. That's what you guys are designed to
Mm.
be. So when I play, this is when you know what? Let's use some mobility. Let's use some advanced rolls and try to get further around things to
Mhm.
get out of their areas. So,
Yeah.
but to your question, I would pick assassinate in this case because bring it down. I don't want to fight against your big
Plagueburst
multi things.
crawlers and
Titan Hunter.
defilers and
I think
At the same time, if you got a lot of bloat drones, they're pretty easy to kill. the Death Guard.
Who takes a lot of bloat
We
drones? So
I did
we
that
like
one
to
game
just
and they
run the
won the
line and
game.
explode.
and yeah, and cut off the head. Usually, whoever your warlord is, he's already going to be tough. He's already going to have other things, and he has discussion resilient. And like, it's one of those things that's already it's a big juicy target, but it's a target that you're going to realize is just super tough to deal with. So then you're like, all right, I'm not going to realistically, unless I get super luck and rolls to get him until turn 3. And that's again being hopeful. But anyway, that's
Yeah.
that's my point of view. But
All
again,
right.
people who are listening to this, if you haven't seen my roles, you don't understand my reasoning behind things. So
And that's all that much more of a reason for you guys to head on over to Level Up Wargaming. Come check us out and see Craig's dice rolls.
yes, and as the Falcon once mentioned, Peter Closimo from one of his comments when we did Morks last year, he advertised me as coming to see a real life Hobbit. Um, Really classy fella he is,
Oh, he
and
sure is.
yeah, and you folks have me to thank for it. I'm the one that got him into this hobby. So for all you listening, the Falcon wouldn't be without me. So you're welcome.
All right, on to the next one. Shadow Operations. Just by reading that, that sounds like it's right up your aisle, Craig. So essentially, raise the banners high. So if you select this objective, then units in your army can perform the following action. So, raise the banners. Action. One or more infantry unit from your army can start to perform this action at the end of your movement phase. Each unit from your army that starts to perform this action must be in range of a different objective marker that does not have one of your banners raised upon it. See below, it explains a little bit more. A unit cannot start this action while there are enemy units, excluding aircraft, in range of the objective marker. The action is completed at the end of your turn. If this action is successfully completed, that objective marker is said to have one of your army's banners raised on it. The banner is removed if your opponent controls the objective marker at the start of any phase. And I hear a lot of people talking because that's the big one right there. It's any phase that they come within it, you lose it. You score 1 victory point at the end of your command phase and 1 victory point at the end of the battle for each objective marker on the battlefield that has one of your banners raised upon it. So, Craig, you want to start with that one?
Sure. I think this is fun. From a shadowy point of view, I don't think this is really stealthy, just people randomly shooting up banners everywhere. But hey, um, I think it's fun because that kind of leads back to the point where we started with the start of our conversation in regards to how people are going to be more mobile, people are coming across the board, et cetera, et cetera. If you're taking this, you're obviously going to be moving around. You want to try to move around. You're also going to try to take objectives so that you can spend these actions to do things. But that's part of the gamble is you're doing an action, which means you're not doing anything else.
Mm.
So you're usually going to have a secondary unit to run interference and protect them, or to be a bigger target. At least in
Yeah.
theory, you should. If you just run out one unit, they're most likely going to shut down, and that's up to you.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think it's fun. I think it can potentially give you a lot of points, but again, this is situational. If you don't have enough objectives on the board, you're not really going to get a lot out of it. So
Mm.
it becomes one of those things. This is really only situational to a match where there is more than 4 objectives, in my opinion. Teach their own on that at that point of view. But for me, anyway, that's why I think you want more. You want to have more versatility where you can be on the board, where you can hide, and how you can kite or maneuver around your opponent to try to get these things. But anyway, that's my 2 cents worth.
Mm.
I feel like this plays well into my Slanesh demons, just because demonettes can't do anything other than raising actions. Like I get up the board so fast, and then I can just at the end of my movement raise a flag and move on. Like I don't gut shooting. Same thing with my poxwalkers. They don't gut shooting, so they're not going to do anything anyway unless you're close enough that I can get in. But
Mm.
They have
like
confidence to look like that. They have confidence in who they are, and they inspire themselves. So they have that much
they
going
get
for them,
shit
right?
done.
Yeah, but no, like Craig was saying a little bit earlier, it's going to be one of those things. If you get onto a scenario where it's like 3 objective markers, it's not going to benefit you. You need something
No.
5, 6, stuff that's going to be in your zone, so to keep your guys back. And like you said, you keep a unit of like Poxwalkers or something that's durable, keep them back there, and put the big juicier target in front of them to take the firepower and to stop people from getting to you. Next one, investigate sites. You score 3 victory points each time a unit from your army successfully completes the following action. Investigate. Action. 1 infantry unit, excluding characters, from your army can start to perform this action at the end of the movement phase if it is within 6 inches of the center of the battlefield, and no enemy units, again excluding aircraft, are within 6 inches of the center of the battlefield. This action is completed at the end of your turn.
So I can see that one playing well against Tau, where they don't like to move. I can go to center board, but do I really want to be in center board? I don't see it as a secondary that I'm gonna pick too often.
Yeah.
And no, if you're Tau, you don't want to be in the center. You don't want to be anywhere other than the back line.
But as Death Guard, like I said, you just drop a bunch of Poxwalkers. If you have a 30-man unit, you're going to be bigger than the 6 inches that they can actually get into it with you. So like you're already kind of stopping them from even being able to cancel you out.
Yeah, but there can't be any enemy units in the center. Everybody plays center board.
But if there's 30 Poxwalkers sitting in the center of board.
I know you can intimidate them, but somebody
But
just
you're
has to drop a
focusing.
model in there and it takes away
No,
your
it's
point.
true.
Yeah, but like you're focusing a lot of your resources. Yes, there are 30 Poxwalkers. That's 30 models that could be somewhere else that now you're using to try to intimidate the center. Now, the thing is, too, is it depends on your deployment, the table you're playing on. If there's no terrain in the middle or there is too much terrain, then that's also different, too. That's something we actually haven't really discussed to some of these points, is how much the terrain will affect some of those choices, because we've all played in tables that have been poorly set up. We've played in tables that are really well set up, and that has a big impact on what you take, because the terrain can actually impact you taking some of these.
No, definitely. Next one is deploy scramblers. Score 10 victory points at the end of the battle if you successfully complete the following action 3 times during the battle. Once in your deployment zone, once in your opponent's deployment zone, and once more than 6 inches from either player's deployment zone. So, deploy scramblers. Action. 1 infantry unit, excluding characters, from your army can start to perform this action at the end of the movement phase if it is wholly within your deployment zone, wholly within the opponent's deployment zone, or more than 6 inches from either player's deployment zones. This action is completed at the end of your turn. So, Brian, what do you think on that one?
I mean, that's something I might gamble with the Eldar. Being that I can do one in my zone, one in the enemy zone, and then just hit mid board, put another scrambler. I don't know how often I'd take that though.
Because the best part about this one, and I find a lot of these you have to be really pay attention, when do they cash you out? This one's at the end of your turn. So like I said, as long as you can get there, you should be good. It's a lot of these ones that are at the end of the battle round. Then that could vary, because like you can get there no problem, but if your opponent comes up and then takes it away from you, then you're kind of shit out of luck. But here I find this one you can almost kind of play with it, but
yeah, it doesn't say that your opponent can take away your scrambler, so as long as you get them up, you should be fine. And like you score your 10 victory points at the end of the battle for completing the 3 actions. Yeah, I could probably pull that on the Eldar pretty good. Mind you, I'd be performing an action, wouldn't be able to do anything with them, but
then chances are they're probably dead next turn.
The one that I put in third deployment zone, probably.
Oh yeah.
But that's part of the gamble with these, is that, are you going to play to the objective or not? Or are you going to try to play? And that's where this is kind of, I like this edition of doing the actions, is making you play to the objective. And it's like you're investing something. You're investing that unit to the objective. It's not just I showed up and I can shoot and I can fight and wave my chainsword around. No, I have to invest that unit literally to take that. And there's a risk of, because I invested it, I'm going to lose it. So that, again, that idea of playing to the objective really, to me, comes in more in play with stuff like this, especially where you really have to, I have to get in my deployment zone of my enemy. Yeah, that's, you're like you said, Brian, I'm going to say bye to that unit.
Yeah, because especially you have to do it 3 times. But
Yeah.
that's the thing that I find is the big thing that people, and this is another reason why I keep saying is like, read before you go, because this one you can't score more than 10. So unless you can dedicate and you know for a fact you're going to get it for 3 turns to max that 10 points out, you're still going to kind of be behind from another objective you could have scored like 12 or 13 by not
Yeah.
maxing out or something. So
Yeah.
next one, Teleport Homer. Score 4 victory points each time a unit from your army successfully completes the following action. One infantry unit from your army can start to perform this action at the end of the movement phase if it is wholly within your opponent's deployment zone. This action is completed at the end of your next command phase, provided the unit attempting it is still wholly within your opponent's deployment zone. And that's another one, like I was saying, it's not just at the end of your turn, so your opponent's going to have that chance to just pew, you're done.
That's going to be a Death Guard one, I feel. You just drop your Deep Strike in or Strategic Reserve
10
in and
Light Lord Terminators.
just hold your resilience in there.
But you're dedicating to
I
those
know.
objectives. So
But with
like
the
that
new
be
War of the
something that
Spider, I can bring 20-man squad of Poxwalkers in there and just park them there.
Mm.
I'm Morales. You got to soak firepower into it while I'm putting other stuff in your face. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't see this being something for every army
No, not at
to take
all.
that
it's
option.
very situational,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like most.
Yeah. So next category, Warpcraft. Anchor the Witch, or another word I can't pronounce. Abhor the Witch? Correct me if I'm wrong. Abhor.
Abhor,
Yeah. Oh, there
abhor
we
the
go.
witch.
You guys know by now I can't speak. Hence
That's
that
all
one.
right. That's why you brought me here, wasn't to be that jerk that points out the random things you can't say.
Yes. So you cannot select this secondary objective if your army includes any Psyker units. Score 5 victory points at the end of the battle for each enemy Psyker character unit that is destroyed, and 3 victory points for every other enemy Psyker unit that is destroyed. Yeah, so just straight up. So it's one of those
Sounds like it's a
things.
Tau and Dark Eldar friendly stratagem or secondary.
But
'Cause,
at this end of the day, it's like I can see this being used against like Thousand Suns, Grey Knights. But how many times are you going to see 3 psychers in a list? That's
yeah,
the
but
main thing right there to max out
that
your
is true.
16 points.
It's just where you can't select
Yeah.
the secondary if you have any Psyker units.
Oh yeah,
That
like you
to
were
me only
saying, like
resignates Tau and Dark Eldar.
mm, World Eaters.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's super situational, but there's a bit of fluff to it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it'll go fluffy with those armies that are going to take it.
Exactly. Uh, Mental Interrogation. Score 3 victory points each time you successfully complete the following psychic action. Mental Interrogation, Psychic Action, Warp Charge 4. One psychic character unit from your army can attempt to perform this psychic action in your psychic phase if it is within 18 inches of an enemy character model. So I think that one's pretty straightforward. Like I said, if as long as you have a psyker that you can actually just be like, oh, whatever, like it doesn't matter what you're casting, as long as you're 18, so obviously you have to get them up a little ways, and warp charge 4, chances of actually missing it pretty slim, but
yeah.
It's interesting because now you have two parts to this. You don't just
mm,
have an action; you have an action and a dice roll.
mm-hmm.
So, like
Mm,
to me, that's
Perils of
like
the Warp is bad.
how much do I want to? Yeah, like how much do I want to do that? Because now I have to invest two things into trying to make this work.
and
I
Yeah.
there
have to
is a
stand here and
chance
get
that
punched, and then like the guy who me could roll a 3 or 2 very easily.
mm,
Um, that that would kind of be unfortunate.
mm. No, again, very situational, and that's the big thing. Every one of these are all going to be situational depending on who you're playing. Next one is Psychic Ritual. Score 15 victory points at the end of the battle if any unit from your army successfully completes the following psychic action 3 times during the battle. So essentially, psychic action, warp charge 3, a little bit better. One psychic character unit from your army can attempt to perform this psychic action in the psychic phase if it is within 6 inches center battlefield. Ouch.
Castle your wizard and move them ahead, and then
Yeah.
just let them do it, and then basically disperse.
Because
Yeah,
yeah, 'cause
seems
you have
pretty
to do it 3
straightforward.
times. Like I said, like I said, with the smaller board size, like you should be able to get them up close enough,
Almost turn one.
relatively quick enough. Yeah.
Well, if you're Zinch and you're on a disc, you're
Oh
right
yeah.
there.
You just cover them with pink horrors
Yeah.
and again, like I said, if you have that psyker that you're willing to sacrifice, because like I said, as long as he's not there to give off any big buffs that's gonna hinder you gameplay wise, then.
Mhm.
And the last one, Pierce the Veil. Score 8 victory points at the end of the battle if one or more units from your army successfully completes the following psychic action 2 or more times during the battle. Or 15 victory points at the end of the battle if one or more units from your army successfully completes the following psychic action 4 times during the battle. Note that you can only score this objective once. So essentially, the psychic action is a warp charge 4. One psychic character from your army can attempt to perform this psychic action during your psychic phase if it is within 6 inches of your opponent's battlefield edge and more than 6 inches from enemy models.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty slim picking secondary. I
Yeah.
wouldn't take that. There's too much risk involved with it.
Yeah.
Somebody starts something 6 inches in you, you can't cast it. You need that 4 turns to max out of like a 5 turn game.
Yeah.
The other side of it too that I don't know if we really talked to either is like this is an end game objective versus like progressive.
Mm-hmm.
I would like more of the progressive objectives because I want to know that I'm actually obtaining
Working.
something as opposed to putting everything into one basket and hoping for that end objective to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, that's kind of the different dynamic between playing a game for the end point versus just as you go
Mm-hmm.
obtaining points. But Pierce the Veil, I think, would be, yeah, you'd really want to be invested to try to get that going.
And I'm sure there's some builds out there that can honestly probably take that quite easily. Well, I don't want to say quite easily. Like, obviously, he's going to have a little bit of an easier time than some other armies. But from the way I see it, is essentially that's a turn 1 or turn 2 deep strike them in, castle them in like a far corner. Because, like I said, it just needs to be 6 inches from the battle edge. It doesn't say where. So if your whole opponent is actually at one end of the board, you go to the complete opposite end. You hide him in that corner. You surround him. Hope for the best. I guess the best way, honestly, I can see that one really panning itself out the best.
Hmm.
All right. Well, that's essentially all the secondaries in the Grand Tournament 2020. So if any of the listeners have like any thoughts on any of these, by all means, leave a comment. If you want some more questions on any of these, again, leave a comment. Hey, while you're at it, give the video a like if you enjoyed our little conversation on the secondaries. And again, I'm going to say comment section again. If you want to hear us talk about certain subjects that you want to see a little bit more on, leave it on there because we're always looking for ideas to keep everything entertained. Like we want to make content for you guys to keep you coming back and really want to see our point of view on a lot of these. So thank you guys very much for joining me on this episode talking secondaries and giving me your guys' inputs.
Thank you. I was not sure. I didn't want to interrupt Brian, but thanks for letting me join in on the adventure.
I was out of it,
Um,
man. I'm sorry.
oh, it's all right. You were just trying to think of all the different ways to say subsequently. So, um, but no, thanks for having me on board, and I look forward to being able to work with you guys a bit more from the level up point of view. And if nothing else, hopefully we'll get to see each other later this week at the club and maybe talk more, try out some of these secondary objectives.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, I've been heavily vested in the Crusade, which is something we've been talking about doing in a future episode here.
Yeah, I think a lot of
I,
us are a little bit more in the Crusade
I'm
right
really
now.
enjoying this Crusade this time.
All right. Well, thank you guys and have a good night, everybody.
Night.